Like life and death, moon and sun, it's sure to each the piper comes. And while God and Goddess give for free, down below there will be fees. Despite perfect love and perfect trust, there's no way around it. Cash is a must. We've sought within, but come up short. So we come to thee, your help to court. If you would aid this temple's life, a $3 donation would be nice. Remember well that gifts when sent return threefold of what was spent. But if you can't, well, blessed be. We shall survive, so mote it be.
Merry meet and welcome to week 46 of Wicca, a year and a day in Magic. I'm Lady Nefties, and this week we'll be studying Sabbat rituals and celebrations of other non-Wiccan, but still pagan, faiths. Now, as we have learned throughout this course, that many Wiccan Sabbats and celebrations have come from Celtic festivals or Celtic fire festivals. Now, in your path, you will encounter other pagans and Wiccans who may not celebrate these Sabbats as they appear on the Wheel of the Year. You may come across Norse pagans that celebrate their own unique Wheel of the Year, or you may encounter Egyptian pagans that celebrate a completely different set of festivals and Sabbats. Now, if you meet other pagans who are not Wiccan, it's good to know when they have their festivals and sacred days. And by learning about other pagans' culture and their celebrations, it helps build a stronger pagan community overall, and more understanding between Wiccans and non-Wiccan pagans. But even so, these festivals that they celebrate might be even celebrating gods and goddesses you already worship. And where's the loss if you're already celebrating a god and goddess that you already worship anyway as a Wiccan, and there's never a wrong reason to have a party. Now first we're going to start off with the Norse Celebrations. Now they have their own unique Wheel of the Year. Well, it's very similar to Wicca's, and they also have a few additional celebrations in between, but we're only going to be covering about a few of them. So first let's start out with Yule. Norse pagans and heathens also celebrate Yule. They celebrate it on December 21st to the 30th. Now, it's traditional for them to have a large pork roast in honor of the god Freyr. Children will leave carrots for Odin's horse, whose footfalls can be heard on the roof. This is where Santa Claus and his reindeer come from. Now, they consider the borders of the realms, even those of the god's realm of Asgard, to become thin during this time of year. So it's a good time to commune with your ancestors or with the gods themselves. Now the next celebration of heathens and Norse pagans is the Disting. Now this takes place around where Wiccan Imbolc would be in early February, and it celebrates the returning of the spring, just like Imbolc, and it also honors the female ancestors, known as the Dis. Now, they help their descendants in a way of tough love by steering them in the right direction with this tough love in order for them to learn a lesson. And they are not harmful when they do this, though, but it is tough love. But then on the 14th is the Feast of the Vali. That's February 14th, who avenged Balder. This is also celebrates the return of life, romance, and marriage. Now the next holiday on the Norse calendar, or the heathen calendar, is Ostara. It already shares the name with our Ostara and takes place on the spring equinox. It's also known as the Sigblot. Now, it also honors Ostara, the Teutonic goddess, and it's very similar, as I've said before, to the Wiccan Ostara because it's basically the same festival, even down to the painting of the eggs. Now, Walpurgia, or Walpurgia's Eve, and May Day. which takes place on April 30th or May 1st, and it celebrates the spring, and it is a good day to work magic. It's also a fine time to honor Freya and the rest of the Vanir. Now, it's also like the Wiccan Beltane because maypole dancing is also done on this day. Now the next celebration on the heathen calendar is midsummer, June 21st, the summer solstice. Now it's appropriate to give offerings not only to Suna and Balder, the sun goddess and god, but also to all the gods and goddesses and celebrate the return of summer and the sun. The next celebration is Frey Fax or Loaffest. It takes place on August 1st or August 21st, depending on the area. Usually, if you're in the far north, it's August 21st, or whenever the first sheaves of wheat are cut. Now, it's a celebration of the first harvest, and also to honor Freyr, Thor, and Sif. The next celebration on the heathen calendar is the fall evening night, or winter finding. It's the autumn equinox in September. On this time, honor Thor and Sif for the continuing harvest time. Now, the last celebration that I'm going to be covering, that is a heathen or Norse pagan celebration. Remember, this list is not all that there is. There are still plenty of other heathen celebrations that you can look up. But let's get to it. The winter's night, the first full moon, after the fall equinox. Now it's sometimes called winter finding, but some traditions, in heathen traditions, separate them. But this is the celebration of the last harvest, similar to Wiccan Samhain, which Samhain is the last of the 3 harvest Sabbats. So, during this celebration, you honor the Alfar, the elves, and ancestors. Now this is also the start of the heathen New Year, which is kind of similar to Samhain, being a couple weeks after the first full moon after the fall equinox usually. So it's also similar because it is the start of the Wiccan New Year, and the heathen New Year takes place in the same month. Now it's time to get on to the exciting part, the Egyptian calendar and festivals. Now I'll only be covering a few of these, and I will be covering the 3 seasons that the ancient Egyptians followed. They did not have a 4-season calendar, but their calendar was 365 days, just as ours is today. Now there were 360 days, and plus the 5 days that Nut gave birth to her children. The first day was Osiris, second day was Horus the Elder, third day was Set, fourth day was Isis, and fifth day was Nephthys. Now after this, the rising of the star Sopdet, also known as Sirius, coordinated with the floods of the Nile in Egypt. Now, the new year, called Wip Rompet, spelled Wepronpet, started usually on July 18th, although the date does vary. This was the start of Egyptian New Year, considered to be the birthday of Ra, a celebration of new beginnings, and also the start of the season of Ankhet, the inundation. Now, the start of the inundation season lasted from July 18th to November 14th. Now, another one of the calendar celebrations takes place on August 3rd through the 5th, called the Hab Wagi and the Hab Jahuti feast, and it is a feast to honor the dead and also the god Jahuti, also known as Thoth or Thought. Now another celebration is called the Hab Hakur, or the Osiris Mysteries, which took place on November 18th to November 14th. This was the time when the Nile flooded, so this was the time to plant seeds. As you can see, this is almost a polar opposite of what was celebrated in Northern Europe during what would be Imbolc and Ostara and even Beltane. In Egypt, they planted their seeds in the fall and the winter because of the climate there. So you could see why this is very different than what Wiccans and other pagans celebrate. But the Hab Hakur, this celebrated the god Osiris, and it commemorated his tale of his murder and then celebrated his resurrection. Now, the next season is called the Emergence season. It's a season of Peret, which lasted from November 15th to March 15th. So the first festival I will be covering took place on January 5th to the 9th. It's called the Hab Nakiru. It's the Fest of Victory. Now, a note here about my pronunciations. Nobody really knows how the ancient Egyptians pronounced things, so I will be including right now how to pronounce that last word that I just said. But anyway, this celebrates the victory of Horus, son of Isis, Horus the Younger, over his uncle Set in Edfu. Now another celebration is March 15th, called the Hab Min, also known as the Feast of the god Min. Now this became the time of harvest and honored Min, the god of fertility, also another polar opposite as opposed to the Wiccan calendar, the Wiccan wheel of the year, where the Hab Min takes place where Ostara would be the time for planting. In Egypt, it's the time for harvest. Now, the last season on the Egyptian calendar I'll be going over, because it is the last, is the season of Shomu, known as summer, or it's also referred to the harvest season. It takes place from March 16th to July 12th. Now, there are very few festivals during this time, and I'll be going over a few of them. So one of them takes place on April 28th, called the Hab Nefer in Pa Inet. It's called the Beautiful Feast of the Valley, and it honors the dead and your ancestors. Now, if you think about how everything in the Egyptian calendar seems to be a cross-quarter of the Wiccan calendar, you could see why this celebration, which takes place on April 28th, is so close to Beltane, and Beltane's cross-quarter on the Wheel of the Year is Samhain. So this could be viewed as a similar celebration for Samhain, but also the Osiris Mysteries, which takes place in November, could also be seen like a Samhain if you want to include Egyptian celebrations into your Wiccan Wheel of the Year. Now, another celebration that takes place on May 27th is the Hab Nit, the Feast of Neith, the goddess. Now, this celebrates the goddess, who is viewed as one of the oldest, and it commemorates how she saved the sun god Ra. So, in the primordial waters of Noon, she took the form of a gigantic cow, and she lifted Ra out of the waters to protect Ra from her very own children, which happened to be some very nasty, mean Nile crocodiles. Now, we're going to learn about what you can do for your Wiccan Sabbats as activities to plan with your family or with your coven, or you could just do them yourselves. But if you need a review, go back to Week 6 of Wicca, A Year and a Day, and Magick. Now let's begin about what activities you could do for the different Sabbats on the Wheel of the Year. Now, on Samhain, October 31st, you can make a besom, or do divination, or hold a dumb supper. Now, a dumb supper is where you make dishes for your dead loved ones and set a place for them at your table, and you and your living family or your coven can invite your deceased loved ones. in on Samhain. Because remember, as we've learned before, Samhain is the time when the veil is thinnest between the world of the dead and the world of the living. So your past loved ones should be coming in to join you for a dumb supper. But remember, when you set the plate and you hand out the food, to not eat the food that has been given to your past deceased loved ones. You should pour it outside or just throw it in the trash, whichever is the correct option depending on your living situation. Now, Yule, winter solstice, you could decorate a Yule tree, tell stories, or burn a Yule log, or make a Yule log. Now, a Yule log is a Celtic tradition. The log is cut from a oak tree, which is a god symbol, and 3 holes should be bored at the top of the log, lengthwise, obviously. And these 3 holes are the symbol of the triple goddess, and place 3 candles in these 3 holes, 1 white for the maiden, 1 red for the mother, and 1 black for the crone. And cover it in holly, mistletoe, and evergreens to symbolize the reunited goddess and god. Also, some traditions, the log is then burned in the fireplace, and the ashes are kept to ensure and attract protection, fertility, strength, and health. Now, if you don't have a fireplace, not to worry, you can bake a Yule log cake and just eat it rather than, having an actual log and burning it. And then you can also put little birthday cake candles into the Yule log cake. Now let's move on to Imbolc. Now obviously, burn white candles, a symbol of the maiden goddess. Make a grain doll for fertility magic made from the grains from last year's harvest. Or you can make a sun wheel, also known as a breed's cross. And Adostara, good activity, which is readily available to just about anyone because they are everywhere during the time of the spring equinox, is to make Easter eggs. Now, this is a good, wholesome pagan activity that you probably already did when you were a child, even before you were pagan or Wiccan, or if you were lucky enough to be born into a pagan and Wiccan family, you've already done it, because this is a good, wholesome pagan family activity. But let's move on to Beltane, May 1st. Now, maypole dancing is an obvious one, but less obvious is how to get a large pole and how to get space to do a maypole dance. So, if you don't have access to one or you can't figure out where you can get a large pole, you can make one at home. Usually you could use one of the dispensers for paper towels that's readily available and in a kitchen store. And you could set it up erect, and then you could wrap it with white ribbon for the female and red ribbon for the male. And if you work in a coven, this will also work too. It's just on a much smaller scale. Because usually, during Beltane, this time of the year in Washington State, it is usually too rainy to go outside and do this activity. So an indoor miniature maypole is perfect. Now, the maypole is obviously a symbol of the union of the Lord and the Lady. Now on to Litha, the summer solstice. You can weave a god's eye, which can be hung in your home for protection. Lunasa, August 2nd, as the first of the harvest Sabbats, as we all know from previous lessons. Now, a good activity is to bake cornbread or other corn products celebrating the harvest. Now, Mabon, our last Sabbat, the autumn equinox, and also the time of pumpkin-flavored everything, which I absolutely love. It's the second of the harvest Sabbats. Now, hold a Thanksgiving feast with your coven or other pagan friends, or even just a Thanksgiving feast with the gods if you're solitary. But you can also make a wreath out of grapevines during this time of the year. And then we move back on to Samhain, the third of the harvest Sabbats. Now, for your weekly activity, I want you to look into other pagan, non-Wiccan celebrations or Sabbats or festivities and research it and see if you would like to put that into your Wheel of the Year rotation. Now, it's pretty fun to celebrate one of the Egyptian ones because it feels kind of opposite of what you would normally do in the Wiccan Wheel of the Year, and it's nice to have a little bit of a change every once in a while. But for next week, we'll be learning how to make magic bags, such as Gregory bags, which is a voodoo practice, and it'll be a lot of fun. Now, until next time, blessed be! If you enjoy the videos that we make and what we do with our channel, then please donate to Universal Pagan Temple, and together we can change the world. Links are in the description below. And until next time, blessed be!